guys, how's it going? Welcome back. So today we're going to talk to you about line 6 amps and, well, if they're any good. Well, I've tried out a couple of them myself at the music store in North Bay, and because I was looking at them originally before I bought my Fender Mustang 1 amp, which I now have 2 of. Anyways, they weren't too bad, I suppose. The prices were a little on the high side for what you were getting, or should I say what you're not getting. You're not getting the ability to hook it up into your computer system and program different effects or alter the built-in effects that are there. Now, it doesn't mean that you can't alter some stuff, but doing it on the computer is really simple and easy, quick to do. Pretty much anybody can learn that stuff in just a matter of minutes. I learned the Fender Fuse program rather quickly with the Mustang 1 amps, and it's that simple. But the line 6 amps didn't offer that capability. So that was one downside, considering what they ask for these things. The other thing is some of the tones are just absolutely horrible in them, but some of them are really good, and the clean channel is actually pretty decent. So, you know, it's kind of one of those hem and haw type things and whatnot. And I did a lot of investigating on YouTube myself on line 6 amps, just to see about features and hidden features, which apparently there are some. And these are modeling amps, right? And a lot of people like the idea behind modeling amps, and they do have their place and their good parts, especially for beginners, you know, that want to have some effects and, you know, and they just can't afford pedals right away. Or they're a beginner guitar player and they want an amp with some effects in it, you know, to make it a more appealing and fun, enjoyable experience learning how to play guitar. Because let's face it, distortion, overdrive, reverb, chorus, flanger, phaser, these are all cool effects, and it makes playing guitar that much more exciting, right? And so anyhow, line 6 has a lot of these features, which is quite nice, right? However, after doing a lot of research on the amps, as far as problems go, line 6 amps seem to have a lot of breakdown issues, be it headphone jacks, the main board with the DSP chip, overheating issues in the heads as well. When you get into a line 6 head, I was actually considering getting a line 6 Spider 2 head, and I started doing some research on it, because you got to figure they all can't be bad, right? So well, guess what? Anyway, so I found a video where a guy was talking about a line 6 head, and it turned out it was the exact same one I was looking at. And these things have no cooling systems in them, okay? And that's something that is pretty much mandatory issue in my books. Once you get past about, you know, 40 watts, 50 watts of power, you know, you really should have some cooling in there, not just a big open cavity with a little bit of vents, you know. You actually need some, you know, a couple of fans in there, one blowing in, one sucking out, so it can create a tornado wind inside to keep things cooler. Because when you start pushing the power, things start to heat up a lot. And the same goes for, you know, tube amps would be the same way. So whether you're tube or solid state, I mean, you got to have some adequate cooling or things going to burn up. And so this was one of the problems that was going on with this amp. And you know, I was watching the guy troubleshoot it, and he changed out this chip and changed this out, changed that out. In the end, it turned out to be the DSP chip, which is not a part that you can just change yourself. I mean, there are so many bloody legs on that thing. It is utterly ridiculous. Okay, but it's the main heart and brain of this thing, right? And it seems that that's the overheat. Well, putting on a heat sink really isn't going to help you out too much either. So you got to find a way to keep it really cooled down. And a couple of 120 volt fans would definitely help with that. But it doesn't mean it's going to cure the problem either, you know, or having it happen again. And to replace that entire circuit board is quite costly. Cha-ching! Okay. So you got to kind of look at that. And so when you're researching amps, you know, check for problems. You know, so in this case, I did a YouTube search, and I typed in just exactly this: line 6 amp problems. Okay, so this way covers all the line 6 amps, right? Anyways, Came up with quite a few videos of problems, and of course I started checking forums and other boards, and oh yeah, these things got a lot of issues. So are they really that hot in the end? I'm thinking no. So you've got a product that is got some really neat features, but also at the same time has a lot of major downfalls to it. And even on amps that aren't being pushed that hard, like even the smaller practice amps, they're still going up, and just having one problem of one kind or another. This is something that shouldn't be going on. I mean, you got to think, yeah, technology advances and blah, 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 blah. Give me 10 million excuses. I'll give you 10 million more. Okay? The point is, if a product is going to be manufactured, it should be thoroughly factory tested to make sure that it's going to be rock stable before releasing it to the public. Because what happens is you start destroying your name, and that's a pity. And that looks like what's happening with Line 6 is they're basically cutting their own throat on this because they're not fixing the problems. They're not curing any of these problems. And it's at the customer's expense. They buy these amps and thinking they're getting good amps. And maybe the amp will last for maybe a year or two, maybe 6 months, maybe a day, maybe a couple of years. Just depends on how hard it's being pushed, or just even general usage alone. These things are breaking down without even pushing them hard. I went and I did a search on problems with the Mustang amps. And I think I only came across one video on YouTube and maybe one article on Google search. So I'm thinking, well, I'm kind of glad now I went with the Mustang amps, And it's not like it was a major issue either. So that's good and reassuring to know. And I do kind of push my amps, and I'll tell you my settings right now on my Mustang amps. My gain is at 3, my main volume is at 7, and my master is at 7. Bass is at 5, and treble is at 5. And of course I'm running the 65 twin reverb model amp, which I've removed all of its effects, including reverb. And so I just want it as a straight clean channel. And it does a really wonderful job as a clean channel. And there's a couple other amps within that row of 8 that can be cleaned up really nice for clean sound, right? Excuse me. So anyway, yeah, it's a modeling amp too, right? So there are a lot of good modeling amps out there. Fender Mustang series seems to definitely be a pretty good solid amp. Now, I was looking at other Mustang amps, and with me, I don't like to have too much stuff in an amp, even for a modeling amp. So I don't like digital displays and too much computerized crap going on, because it's just asking for more trouble. So these are kind of like a basic amp. You got some knobs on there, and you can program these things in through your computer. And I've actually run the amps direct into GarageBand, which means I can manipulate stuff even more so. Again, something else Line 6 does not offer the capabilities of having to be done. And the Fender Mustang 1 amps were cheaper than the Line 6, even with the similar type of spec, right? Of course, you're still an apple to an orange, because the Fender Mustang has far superior features and capabilities over the Line 6, which came in at a higher dollar for something even around the same type of size and wattage and whatnot, okay? So I thought, all right, well, I went with the Mustangs, and even though they kind of lack a little bit of bass, I've been finding ways to get some more bass pushing out of them, because I like to have a bit of bass, you know what I mean? And I also don't like amps that squeal with too much tone or mid. Now, there are a lot of Fender amps out there that do kind of have a lot of tone to them. I've got a Fender Frontman 15G, and I've actually had to dial the settings back quite a bit in order to make it more of an appealing sound, especially for my ears. But I also, of course, don't want to break glass. And, because it has quite the excessive amount of mid and treble area. And not too bad on the bass, but not the greatest. But, you can dial things down, and, when you start decreasing trebles and mids, you actually help your bass along a little bit. Anyway, so more on the Line 6 amps. I don't find that they're a very good amp. No matter how little or how much you're paying for them, they're just not going to be a reliable type of amplifier. So I'm going to probably go with I would not recommend them. Now, even though I don't own a Line 6 amp myself, I do have experience playing on a number of them at the music store, and I've developed an opinion there. And of course, I've done a lot of homework and research and checking out online reviews even on YouTube and elsewhere. And there are an awful lot of bad reviews on several of the different Line 6 amps. And at the same time, there's some good experiences people have had, but, I mean, they also haven't had these amps for that long, so, they haven't run into the problem yet, right? And that also tells me, too, that maybe when they bought theirs, too, they really didn't check into them. They just saw, well, Line 6, that's cool, and they look at that little sign, millions sold to musicians, la 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 la. And a lot of people just kind of read stuff and just go with it, and they think they're getting a good deal. They just stop at that point of the tag. And I most certainly do not. I believe in researching your product as best as you can before spending your money, okay? Because it is your hard-earned money that you spend on your music gear, so you want to make sure that you get the best bang for your buck. Same thing with buying effects pedals. Some people think, well, the more money you spend, the better it is, and that's absolutely the biggest load of BS I've heard in my life, because you can get some very inexpensive pedals that blow the doors off of those blow the doors off the expensive ones, and you can cheap out. Prime example, the New X Loop Core pedal. It has 40 rhythms, it has 6 hours of record time, it has an auxiliary input, which I've actually dubbed out through my mixing board so I can run vocals and guitar and backfeed the drum system into itself at the same time and record all that stuff onto the pedal. Now, the Boss RC3, which this thing is a rip-off copy of apparently, has less recording time, no auxiliary input jack. It does have a foot control capability like the New X does, but it has also less than half the amount of rhythms available, among other things. So really, and the Boss is 2.5 times the price almost over the New X Loop Core. So which one is better, people? Okay, logic dictates New X Loop Core wins every time. Same with many other pedals, when you can compare them against Boss pedals and get them for far less money with the same features, okay? Or maybe you'll get even more features for less money, okay? But anyway, so this is why you got to research stuff. And with looking into the Line 6 stuff, more than enough now, I'm definitely going to say, if you do not own a Line 6 yet and you've been thinking about one, stop thinking about it, don't buy it, okay? Don't even consider their product until they can straighten up their act, which is probably not going to happen anytime soon, okay? And I got to tell you, if I was one of those customers that had bought a Line 6 system brand new and these problems started coming up and it's something that's continuing with no fixes, I would be wanting to think about suing the company, because this is stuff that consumers spend their hard-earned cash on. They expect to have quality, especially for the money you spend. It's kind of like Marshall amps, right? You can buy a cheap little Marshall amp that sounds actually really surprisingly good, for about 140 bucks. I'm talking Canadian money here, so don't scream down my head for, oh, it's cheaper. And we already know it's cheaper in the States. Anyway, point being, and there are cheaper Marshall amps than 140. There's actually one for 120 bucks that, surprisingly enough, is not a bad sounding little practice amp. And it's got the Marshall name, so if you're a Marshall fanboy, hey, there you go. Start your Marshall collection today. And I've nothing against Marshall amps. In fact, I'd like to get 1 or 2 of them myself, maybe 3 or 4 down the road. But I'm picky on the models that I would go after, and I definitely, from this point on, I think I'm going to avoid modeling amps, except for maybe the odd one. I might pick up just to see, otherwise I'm going to try and collect a lot of regular amps, that have just clean and overdrive or straight out clean. And I'll throw my own pedals on, and I think that would be the better way to go. Anyways, So that's my thoughts, guys. Let me know what you guys think. And hey, catch you on the next video.